I would put some music and some audio cues in this intro.
What happens when technology subsumes humanity? When humanity is no longer defined by being human.
I believe you'll understand after you see this.
The legendary cyberpunk classic finally comes to television in an all-new original series, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. Premiering Saturday, November 6th at 12:30. The future is now.
When I was a kid of 8 or 9 years old watching Adult Swim on a Saturday, knowing I had no school that entire weekend, I'd stay up late to watch the likes of Full Metal Alchemist 2003, Inuyasha, Super Milk-chan, Fooly Cooly, Read or Die, Lupin the Third, and Detective Conan, or as it's known in the West, Case Closed. At random, however, amongst all of them, I found myself watching something peculiar, something I had never seen before. It was an opening from another show I stumbled into that night involving a woman jumping out of an aircraft, landing on a walking tank, whipping out her pistol, and shooting at it. But what really captured me wasn't this act of bravery, this bit of action, nor did I question whether or not her puny weapon would do anything to a literal tank with legs. Rather, it was the music that accompanied this imagery. To this day, Inner Universe by the late Origa and Shanti Snyder is one of my favorite anime opening songs of all time, being, at once, calming, atmospheric, extravagant in scale, and operatic. This English and Russian track lived rent-free in my mind then as it does now, expressed with opulent cadences and display of voice. Considering that we focus on a world where the meaning of humanity becomes blurrier every passing day to the point of being able to swap bodies of your choosing like clothing, shedding our organic selves to pursue a greater humankind through technology at the cost of ethical or moral clarity, Inner Universe is about someone struggling with their individuality as we go beyond nature and push the limits of our ingenuity toward a greater humanity. For good or for ill. It's all painted in a heavenly melody, and fits the show like a tailor-made glove made of the finest linen and wool. And even as a dumbass kid, I was able to recognize this wholeheartedly. I still listen to Inner Universe to this day and never get tired of its existence. I'm listening to it now, in fact. For some reason, I never actually watched this show back then. And yet, even without understanding what it was about, this one singular aspect remained as something I'd come back to someday. That was my initial meeting with Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. This isn't my first experience with the franchise, having seen the original 1995 Mamoru Oshii classic years back, and the often forgotten 2017 film adaptation, but I never really considered myself all that interested in delving further into the property for whatever reason. Thinking on it, I found that though the 1995 Ghost in the Shell is as thought-provoking and beautiful as its pedigree would suggest, I wouldn't call it accessible. Though running under 90 minutes, the film is a slower-paced, steady burn in terms of pacing to draw you into its atmosphere and world that, though masterfully crafted, the intent and purpose of said pace could go over the heads of casual viewers. Character development outside of Motoko herself is also limited partly due to the runtime, where anyone who isn't her is unable to be given the limelight to be defined. So, supporting characters like Bato or Tokusa take a backseat to the film's grander philosophical ponderings about the line between what makes a human human and where the line can be drawn when a machine begins to express individuality like we do, if a line exists at all. It's a film where the world mesmerizes, but isn't explored nearly as much as it could be. There's a cast that exists to serve the main themes of the plot. It's a film I understood, but never wanted to watch again. I admired Ghost in the Shell in 1995, but it didn't turn me into a Ghost in the Shell fan. And yet the world of Ghost in the Shell always lay there in the back of my mind as something brimming with all this potential for amazing stories, a potential that, unbeknownst to me, was already fulfilled by its own TV anime. Expanding on the already fascinating framework laid down by its manga and film adaptation, Standalone Complex, at least the first season of it, had me hooked within a span of 3 episodes, where it asked pre-existing questions, but with refreshing perspectives, and new questions that, when answered, tugged at my jaded ass, and did with its extended runtime what the 1995 film couldn't in 82 minutes, to refocus itself less on Motoko exclusively, but on Section 9 itself and what they do. Seeing Ghost in the Shell plant itself to a more serialized structure only a TV anime can afford, the new perspective pays attention to the entire squad instead of only a few people already lent itself to a defining identity wholly apart from its cinematic predecessor more than I expected it would. This isn't the Motoko Kusanagi show, but it can be about Bato, Tokusa, the chief, hell, even the Tachikoma spider think tanks are able to be explored and are given a whole new depth because of the time allotted to them that a film simply isn't able to provide. Given arcs, given character-defining actions, fill roles and plot lines that aren't just thematically driven, but action-driven too. The serious, capable, confident major who's a mystery to her peers as she is to the audience. Bato being a highly likable tough guy with a good heart and even bigger guns whose personality is explored in some of the show's more character-focused episodes. Tokusa being the human emissary that explores what it's like being primarily organic in a fully cybernetic world, Chief Aramaki being a complicated but highly capable leader who doesn't need weapons or violence in general to let you know he's an experienced badass, with even more minor supporting players like Ishikawa, Saito, Borma, or Paz having their moments of characterization that make Section 9 feel even more like a connected group of people working together than the 1995 film. It also helps that no matter the language you decide to watch the show in, you're getting great performances either way based on what I've heard from both, with a surprisingly faithful script at that. Most notable English cast member, and the greatest change from the show's predecessor, would be the voice of Motoko herself. Mimi Woods, who voiced her in the 1995 film's dub, is replaced with Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who I'd say is rather fitting for this version of the character. She goes for someone who's more confident in herself, expressive, sarcastic, sassy even, which is a far cry from the 1995 film's depiction, something that Mimi Woods, though doing a great job with a colder, unsure, self-doubtful direction her version went in, would feel out of place for this one.
Are you alright? Only your pride was injured.
I do not find this funny.
Utilizing its cybercrime, thriller, CSI, or Law & Order meets cyberpunk framework, we could go from an episode about a scientist who puts his brain into a tank and goes on a chase to potentially hunt down his parents, another involving a foreign, hero of the people figure who, under mysterious reasons the episode unravels, always survives assassination attempts due to having a seemingly endless supply of body doubles, an entire episode dedicated to the Tachikomas as they explore their own thriving individuality that blurs the line between an artificial mind and an organic one, an episode that even discusses the subject of artistic freedom in a world where you can literally jack into people's minds and see what they envision firsthand, an episode that brings up its own version of autism well before it became a popular talking point for hacky writers.
I am a surgeon!
That, while not called autism outright, come on, as someone who has it, these kids are straight up spaghetti. And of course, you got the Laughing Man arc, a multi-layered, conspiracy-driven thrill ride that pushes Section 9 to the brink, including a notable dialogue-driven episode that takes place entirely in cyberspace that pushes the show's excellent writing. All of it culminating in the final 2 episodes that leave you on the edge of falling on your ass. From beginning to end, Standalone Complex, though failing to capture the same atmospherics and artistic flourishes that pushed his 1995 predecessor from an otherwise simplistic sci-fi thriller to a philosophical animated powerhouse and staple of cyberpunk going forward, nonetheless takes full advantage of its expanded length and rarely does it ever waste a minute fumbling. Even the weakest episode, which for me was the Bato-focused episode involving the serial killings of cybernetic women, is still a compelling watch if only to witness the expansion of his backstory, how the case affects him, and to see where it ends. In other words, it's damn good television. Compelled to binge the season, it never lost my attention. Production IG really flexed their creative muscles here, using its source materials, whether it be the manga or the film, to craft an experience that even someone who's never heard of the franchise before this point can pick up the show, never read the manga or watch the 1995 film, but understand what exactly makes Ghost in the Shell tick right from the get-go. And that's before talking about how the show's conveyed. Even before delving into the show proper, for years, I've always known that Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex to be not only one of the best looking shows of its day, but one that holds up to scrutiny even now, if not exceed a majority of TV anime produced today in terms of sheer presentation. From pristine use of early 2000s digital tools, from coloring to even the use of CG, something otherwise misused during this period and, to an extent, even now, is implemented with an expert's touch, never overshadowing the viewer's attention, blending in seamlessly. To this day, I can watch the Tachikomas move all day and never get tired of it. It's not perfect, obviously. Maybe you'll see some off-modeling, maybe an error or two if you look close enough on an HD screen compared to a standard definition display, as was the era this show released to. Yet, in the grander scheme of things, of its visual makeup, it's shockingly minor and overlooked to most eyes. Kenji Kawai, the composer for the 1995 film, is out, and instead we get the ever-reliable Yoko Kanno, coming from her work on Cowboy Bebop and Escaflowne, among other projects. I'll have to admit that I'm not as familiar with her work as, say, someone like Yuki Kajira, despite having seen some of the anime she was involved with. This is more of a fault on my part, mainly because I've, admittedly, never seen the likes of Darker Than Black, Wolf's Rain, Macross Frontier, and the aforementioned Cowboy Bebop, which is arguably her most famous musical composing effort in terms of anime. She even returned to compose for the Netflix series, which I never saw beyond the first 2 episodes. Yet, she has her cult following, thanks in no small part to her past efforts prior to and after Standalone Complex. So to watch the show and let her self-evident talents do the talking was all I needed to know that I really need to listen to more of her work. Smooth, energetic, moody, dingy, atmospheric, insert words here, and never fatiguing. There's something to Yoko Kanno and her collaborators' range of musical experimentation that just feels like Ghost in the Shell, combining the analog sounds of traditional instrumentation with the flourishes of digital music cues. She manages to make the score fit the world thematically, to weave each moment together whether on her own or through collaboration. From the high-energy groove of Ride on Technology to the soothing tracks like Word the Great, to the atmospherics of the Europe track, to easily my favorite action-packed piece, Run Rabbit Jump. And that's only a select notable few out of an assortment of tracks the show has on offer that manages to set moods, drum up excitement, and to build the world beyond what visuals don't do alone. It's great stuff that, again, just sounds like a literal auditory manifestation of Ghost in the Shell's being. Not to mention that Lithium Flower by Scott Matthew, the first season's credits song, is just the catchiest thing I've heard in a while, and serves as a sort of theme song to Motoko herself, like a tribute to her.
She's so cold and human. It's something humans do. She stays so golden and solo. She's so number 9. She's incredible math. Just incredible math.
The dedication to the material on an auditory standpoint is just remarkable. Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex Season 1 is an anime I wish I saw sooner than I did. I was too late to the party. Well, better late than never, I guess. It's a thrill ride of cybernetic violence, espionage, political intrigue, conspiracy, grandiose aspirations to grab you emotionally, and high intellectual ambitions in nice, easily digestible pieces. From the punchy gunfights with excellent sound design, to Section 9 simply palling around in between missions, to just seeing the Tachikomas being Tachikomas, all childlike and willing to grow their experience points. It was a refreshing watch that seems to be what I was looking for this whole time. It even seems that this, its second season, which I've started recently watching, and its direct film continuation, Solid State Society, seem to be Ghost in the Shell's peak. A peak that the franchise, tries and might, just can't seem to reach again. Lately, Standalone Complex had its all-CG follow-up series released on Netflix in 2020 in the form of Standalone Complex 2045, with a second season landing 2 years later. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 21%. What the hell happened here? I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. All I know is that the first season of Standalone Complex was great to consume, and I'm more enriched for doing so, making a new fan out of me. But I fear that the more I go down the Ghost in the Shell rabbit hole, the more I'll get burnt the deeper I go. For now though, why don't we, as the Major suggests in the first episode's second gig,
We'll just pull out of this surveillance gig and go drown our sorrows at a nudie bar.
sounds like a plan.